Hello and welcome to Super Podcast Time. I am your host, Andrew, of the nerdy collective that is Super Things. Joining me today is other host, Remington.
Hello.
Today we are going to talk about and get nerdy with some filmmaking or cameras and equipment and the like. You can start talking.
Okay. Um, a big prerogative is budget filmmaking. And now, I say now, it's July, August, August 2018. So in the summer of 2018, in the future too, but outlets for media are expanding. Even though it's been the same ones for a while, like Instagram and YouTube and Facebook, um, they're still going to grow within themselves, and maybe new ones will pop up. I doubt it, but online media is huge, and video is huge. Video is fun, and the abundance of video recording equipment um, is crazy. And then the price point it's come to with the quality you can get, and
Right, because you can pretty much do things on your cell phone
right,
and like produce a quality thing, like the movie Tangerine, which was literally
which was
filmed
literally
on
on
an iPhone.
iPhone 5 a few
Yeah.
years ago, and it's a great, it's great. Um, and then if you spend $2,500, you can have the equipment to rival, a Hollywood movie, and nobody would be able to tell a full end feature. Which I'm not going to advocate
Right.
spending that much money, but for less than $100, you can make a great production using what you have.
Yeah. Yeah, so basically I was interested in the topic because I think it's a fun hobby to do, and you can, whether you want to film your next lightsaber fight or turn yourself into a firebender with special effects, there's a lot of room to really get nerdy with filmmaking and cameras and equipment, and honestly just the the large base of technology I find real neat. And I don't know, I guess I have a problem with getting interested in a hobby and then wanting to buy stuff, and
Oh, that's
just can't. There's so much stuff you can buy that it's just great.
it's not just you. It's me. I think it's many people.
Yeah, so I think this today's podcast will be a really good source for anyone looking to, kind of dip their toes into the hobby of filmmaking, or even like photography, because I mean, there's a lot of all that camera equipment and whatnot is very transferable, I suppose. Like,
Multi-purpose.
right.
Um, Even the fundamental techniques of learning and composing photos versus video are the same. They're not exactly the same, but if you take a photo, throw the camera out the window, quality doesn't matter. A nice, well-composed shot that will look pretty. If it looks pretty in photo, it looks pretty in video. And with your use
Right.
of lighting is all it takes.
Cool. So, yeah, the idea for this podcast was more or less sparked because we literally just filmed a music video 2 days ago. And I know you've been working on the editing and whatnot of it. So that was kind of what got me to think, this is something, it was fun to do. It's, you get to just mess around and try out new things, and like, oh, maybe this will look cool, especially when you don't have the constraints of you're doing it for, filmmaking classes, or it's your actual job, because then you're like, oh, deadlines, script,
Quality, it must
right.
be this good. So and so has to approve it and look at it and say, yeah, I want, it doesn't have to pass any quota. It's your own personal standard when
Yeah.
you make your own personal product.
Yeah. So more or less this episode is for anyone either interested in or looking to pick up the hobby of filmmaking on a low budget scale. Like, I know myself, like, I have a Canon DSLR that I got off Craigslist, and you can get dandy quality with pictures and video, and it's fun just to mess around. I get interested in, writing script, even though I didn't film anything with it. It still kind of sparked the interest of it. And, that's a problem that will come to pass in this larger media empire of the super fun time everything's that I get super interested in stuff, dive deep into it, and then kind of,
and the next thing comes along.
Yeah, the next thing comes
steals
along.
the interest.
And that's why I am hosting it and have other people who are better and more qualified. So, with that being said, Remington, are you qualified-ish to talk about filmmaking stuff? And if so, why don't you tell people why you are?
So I have, to me, it's a large history. To others, it would be a short history. But I spent time as a military broadcaster, and I went to the little professional military schooling for journalism, broadcasting, and filmmaking, more or less. So I was in school for that about 10 months, where I learned in different courses on photography, radio, news broadcasting, and feature news. Like, it was a news writing class, but it did go over feature filming aspects. And then from there, I spent quite a few years doing, well, not quite a few, maybe just a few, but doing professional broadcasting work and creating video products and editing others and filming my own products. And it exploded into this huge hobby of mine, and it's something I really care about and really love to do. And when I first started, everybody who gets interested looks at cameras, and you want the number one camera.
Right.
So Andrew said he got his camera off Craigslist. Great move. I kind of got it off Craigslist. I had a friend who knew this guy who was selling a camera, and I was like, oh, this is a sweet camera. This is the same one we use at the office. This is a great deal. Let me jump on this deal. This is like 2014. I bought a 5D Mark III, Canon 5D Mark III. At the time, the brand new price point was about $3,000. And so I picked it up for like $1,600. I think $1,700 with the lens and like a filter and some other random tag-alongs. So I was like, oh, sweet, good deal. But like, I just spent $1,700 on a camera,
Right.
Like that's also a textbook military mistake. A young mind in the military is so excited to finally have money and to get something they're passionate about, which is great. And I totally advocate spending money on your hobbies, or things that you're passionate about, rather than sitting on your money. But looking back, I spent way too much on the camera, because now I have a camera and a lens, and I had a tripod too. That's it. I had those things, which that's all you need. But for that price point, I could have gotten lights, or I could have gotten good audio equipment, or I could have, instead I could have just gotten a $1,200 camera with $500 worth of other equipment that would have made me actually prepared. But sorry, that's my history with cameras and then some. And my editing and filmmaking does go back into, mid high school, early high school. Friends and I, we made some music videos for class, and we would make little lightsaber battle videos because we, figured out how to do lightsabers in the Adobe Premiere Plus school edition that we had at our school.
Right.
But it's a hobby, and it's it's something that I have a love-hate relationship with, but it's something I do enjoy.
Hate it because it's so much equipment and
Yes,
Just
hate it. Hate it because I'll want to film something, but I don't have an idea to film anything. Well, then like, oh, just go out and shoot. Yeah, that's what you're supposed to do. But it it's a little more. I don't know. I make it more complicated in my head. And then at the same time, I'll shoot something, and then it didn't turn out the way I wanted it to, or I'll have to compromise while shooting, or just little things that bug me since I'm not always in total control.
so
Um,
why don't you just go out and write like a 30-page script and then film an indie movie.
Filming anyway.
I feel like that's the way to do it.
So that
is just go out,
I agree.
film your perfect indie movie. Spend 1,000 hours editing it and then ship it off to Sundance. That seems pretty easy, right?
Sure, if you think writing script. I mean, I don't know. I always hit the roadblock when it comes to writing too.
I mean, I just spent last summer. I would go to Starbucks for maybe like an hour or 2 hours every day, and I wrote. I want to say it's like a 50-page script on.
Oh, yeah?
It's about some aliens. I don't know, because I wanted to make a crappy B movie, and it's so inconsistently written because I just kind of went in and freeballed it every day, didn't outline it, didn't think about it, and it just turned out weird.
So
But I think it'd be still pretty cool.
I did that for a while. I was actually it was doing actual. I mean, not that writing a script is an actual work, but it was stuff pertaining to my professional life.
Yeah.
And so I'd get home and then I'd go to Dunkin' Donuts. And the joke was is that I worked at Dunkin' Donuts because they didn't pay me, but I went there to do work because it was a nice neutral ground where I wasn't sitting at my desk where I play video games.
Oh yeah, I hate working at my own desk.
Oh yeah, I hate doing that
Minecraft
too.
is way too tempting.
Yeah, I know. I'm like AFK fishing in
Yeah.
RuneScape while I'm trying to stuff, and
Right.
then I get caught up and I stop stuffing and I just RuneScape.
Yeah.
But so I would go out and I'd go to Dunkin' Donuts. So I don't know, self-help. Maybe I should just choose somewhere to go and start
Start going back to Dunkin'
hamming
Donuts
out.
again.
Yeah.
You just need to eat more donuts. That's the key. So I roughly outlined this question and answer type thing podcast along the lines of me curious about how, let's go from point zero to point filming an awesome movie, what kind of stuff you might need, be it physical or mental, I guess. And so I was kind of thinking what you need to start is just something to film with,
Correct.
like a thing, be it like a camera
So
or
I'm gonna be a little presumptuous here, but I'm going to assume everybody either has a smartphone or has access to a smartphone, whether it be
probably. It's a
your
good
moms,
assumption.
brothers, sisters,
Right.
whoever's, even their old phone. Somebody's old phone. If you don't want to, even if you have your own phone and you don't want to, what happened to your iPod Touch from 2012? What happened to your old Galaxy S3? Well, you probably dropped it and broke it, which is why you
Right.
got the new one. But so you need something to film with, some type of camera. If you have a HD Handycam, those can be super cheap now. And I'm gonna say quality doesn't matter, but it does make it better if you're shooting in 1080p. 720p is okay, and I do not recommend shooting in 4K. I say
Because
this.
your eyeballs literally can't see it.
Yes. So after a while, you do notice, and then editing in 4K is so much nicer, and even compressing 4K to 1080p will make a crisper image. But if you have good lighting, you will have a crisp image anyways, and it won't matter so much. Just shooting in 4K takes a lot of data, and editing in 4K will destroy your computer.
Right, because you
don't-
probably need a big ass.
and it will require a hefty editing rig, and pro level Adobe Premiere or Final Cut X or Final Cut
Yeah,
Pro
yeah.
editing software to handle 4K footage. So if you go out and you buy like the Sony A6300, it's like the cheapest. It's like $1,000, I think, and you can do 4K on that, and it's a great camera. It's one of the cheaper 4K camera options. There's also like the Panasonic G7 and G85 for around the $1,000 price point. But with that 4K footage, you have so much work to do in post that it is not worth it. Even for a while, I would say, on the professional standpoint, if you're like experienced and you want to shoot weddings or do whatever, unless they specifically request 4K, I wouldn't provide 4K.
Yeah, makes sense.
That's my 2 cents on 4K.
Getting a device.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I mean, I've seen, like, as far as I'm concerned, like on, YouTube or whatnot, whatever platform you're putting it on, I've seen videos that are so awful looking, like they're terrible quality, whatever. But if the content is really funny, it could be like grainy, terrible footage, and it's still just hilarious. Doesn't matter.
The
Like,
content is the most important thing.
yeah,
And then back to your footage quality. Don't confuse resolution with quality. You can shoot, honestly, 720 is fine to shoot in 720p, which is, smaller than your average screen right now. But if you're viewing on your phone, which most people will anyways from YouTube, most phones do not have a full 1080p display. And so, if they can't view it at the full resolution, why make it at that resolution?
Yeah.
Also, a lot of people who want to output specifically to Instagram. Instagram's just a little square. You can crop it however you like.
right.
But your pixels, you don't get all your pixels, so you should edit in less pixels. But that's high tech. That doesn't matter.
Right.
So don't confuse quality with resolution. And then, as Andrew said, so actually back to what you need. The two things you need are really, the one thing you need is any type of camera to record.
Correct.
You're done.
Yeah.
Now you can officially start making things. I would say the second thing you need after a camera is an idea. You need something to shoot. So whether you want to just whatever, it's your little brother's football practice, Pee-wee flag football, and you want to go film that. Boom, there you go. There's your story. You can film that.
Make a lifetime 30 for 30 out of your kids' Pee-wee football.
I wasn't gonna say that. I was just gonna say record your brother.
Film it super dramatically and talk about his 8th grade, or no, he's in Pee-wee, so like his second grade, what are they called? Pixie stick snorting problem.
That is. I was just gonna say film that and then put his favorite song behind it, and you don't even have to worry about audio now because you just make a little music compilation, and then that's something, and it's satisfying whenever you're done. And you have something to show somebody. It's like your little baby that you get to be like, yeah, here, look at my little baby, look at what I made. This is my movie I made for this, and it's really satisfying and it's pretty cool. But if you do have more ideas, like, oh yeah, I want to shoot a bank robbing scene because my friend's dad has this cool safe in his bank, or his safe in his basement.
My dad has this bank that he's not doing anything with.
Let's just totally rob it.
Yeah, let's go in there.
Your friend's dad has this cool safe in his basement, and so you're like, oh yeah, dude, this could totally be a bank robbery or like a heist thing, and we could get away on the dirt bikes or like whatever you want to set up for your little action movie. Put a few things together, and then hash it out on, just a piece of notebook paper.
Yeah.
And then
I feel like doing specific scenes is a lot easier than like a cohesive story.
I agree.
Because then you kind of just, I mean, in that case, you're just doing an action sequence that like the level of storytelling is all visual, and you can just kind of be like, the progression of a bank robbery is pretty simple. Is go in, steal stuff, run away, don't get caught. Like,
correct.
Pretty simple.
So that's another point too, and this is where I talked about my troubles and hate of writing because I can never either am a perfectionist and I can't agree with what I'm writing down, or I just don't know what's next and I can't find the right thing. I mean, my advice that I've received and that I would give anybody else is to just keep writing and it'll come together eventually.
Yeah.
That's really hard for me to follow sometimes. So I understand if anybody else has a dilemma there. But as Andrew said, it's more of a, like, it's, I mean, I don't know if he was saying this in general, but it is easier to do just one scene.
Yeah.
And one scene can be a story.
Yeah. And then from there, you can kind of extrapolate, like, okay, well, I did this scene. Now, why did these people do that? Like, one thing
And you can always expand. Yeah.
One thing I've always heard in, like, movie reviewer type videos is there, if, you know, something is reviewed poorly, they'll be like, you know, what was the character's motivation for this? And, you know, like, early on in my not knowing much about movies and TV and whatnot, that's kind of just like, it sounds hoity-toity and kind of pretentious. But, like, honestly thinking about it, like, if a character is lacking some sort of motivation and they're just doing stuff to do stuff, it's just like, what's the point? Why do I care? Like, it helps to have a character doing something for a reason.
So
Unless they're, like, in the background. But,
oh, no, I mean, no, it helps if all your characters have depth. Also, it's hard, too, to get talent, you know? You usually refer to your actors or your people performing as your talent. And it's hard to find your talents. You know, it's hard to find people that will be, and, you know, I mean, like, it's kind of easy to be like, hey, mom, I need you to do this, or hey, like, oh, neighbor, hey, whatever, hey, roommate, like, and you can get a few people, but you can't construct these big things. So it's always easier to think about who you have to,
and then base things off of what you have.
What you have, correct?
Because, you know, again, we're in the low to micro budget film arena.
I like the micro budget.
I stole that. That's not my coined term.
It's all right. Well,
I think it's actually a real term.
It probably is a real term, micro budget.
Yeah.
But even if you look at some of these higher end, like, I don't know, YouTube powerhouses like Digital Rev and Quarter Digital, and I mean there are plenty more, but they base their stories off of special effects and the things they do, but everything is always a quick scene. And, you know, even if all these YouTube short videos or short movies that are 6 to 10 minutes long, you know, even shorter, 2 minutes to 10 minutes long, are generally one scene. It's not a whole entire story they try to cram in, because that's why feature films are so long. From a writing standpoint and from an observing standpoint, it's more like a novel, because you develop with the characters and you watch all these things happen to keep you with the story. And so as the story changes, you can follow it. But so that's why all these guys do these short little scenes. And it's easier to get, it's also very easy to get comedic value out of a short scene too.
Yeah. Or make it super actiony, because it's just, you can, as far as my experience goes with doing special effects, it took me, you know, like upwards of 4 hours to learn how to and produce a 12-second clip of me firebending. And, like, granted, I had no idea what I was doing from the get-go. I can imagine that doing some of these more, you know, super duper intense, awesome, flashy fight scenes or what have you on the big boy YouTube channels, like, that's gotta take forever.
So assuming you have a camera and an idea, boom, you're ready, film something.
Yes.
Done. End of podcast. Just kidding.
Right.
But let's say you have some money, you have a small budget. Don't, like, and if you already have this camera, like your cell phone or your old handy cam or whatever you want to use, I would say don't upgrade your camera first. Buy a little audio mic, a little sound recorder, whatever that is. You can get like a journalist pocket recorder for $12 to $25, and they're okay. I wouldn't recommend getting one that cheap, but like in the $35 to $45 price range, you can get a very
Best
good.
Buy honestly has some. Best Buy is not a sponsor, but they honestly have some really good like
Just pocket recording.
or basic camera kind of stuff. I mean, it depends on which location you visit, but I know my personal Best Buy that is nearby had some good stuff that I needed.
Best Buy is a very good source. And another thing too is that
and also Amazon,
but except for bundles, Best Buy's prices are always on par with Amazon and B&H Photo. I think it's just because of an industry standpoint, and it's mandated by cause it's the same price as the camera's website too.
Oh yeah.
So those cameras they are that much money. So whether you want to order it and wait 2 to 7 days for it to ship, or just run on over to Best Buy and grab it, it will be the same point. So you're not really going to save money on those bigger camera items. Small things like a audio recorder, like a small simple one. I'm not talking about getting a Zune H4n or the H1n, or I have the H1n and it works great. I got it for like $100.
What exactly is that?
It's the handy recorder. A hand recorder.
Oh, that thing that looks like a taser?
Yes.
Okay.
The thing that looks like a taser. And that's just a little audio recorder. And those are great to have. But you can get a small pocket recorder for like $30. And I've got friends that use those. They've got like a bag full, and they've got like 10 of them, because they hook them up to these cheap mics that are like $8 on Amazon. It's just like a little skinny mic, and they put it inside the groom's suits at weddings. So they use them in wedding videos, or they'll use them, in other things where you can't see the mic and you don't want to see it. But honestly, just get one of those recorders, and either if it's got a screw mount and you can get it to screw on, or if you have to tape it on or whatever, put it on a broomstick or a stick in general.
Oh, and do like a boom mic.
Just hold like a boom mic, and and have that requires person number 2, unless you find a way to rig it up at the top of the.
Put it like on a crane on your back and then hang it over your head.
Yeah, that's a little aggressive. It could be done.
So does the booming work with like any mic? Like in theory.
More or less. So I just bought a mic. I used to have it, then it got lost or broken or disappeared or whatever. Happens sometimes with your gear when you're out shooting. It is the Rode Video Micro. It's their like cheapest mic option besides the iPhone mic, I think. Actually, the iPhone one may be more expensive, but it's the Rode Video Micro.
Wait, iPhone has a.
It's Rode makes it. The mic company Rode makes it, but it's specifically for form factor on. I think it actually has the iPhone Lightning cable adapter thing.
Oh, that's cool.
But anyways, the Rode Video Micro, and it was I think $60, and it's just the mic, so you have to plug it into something, whether that be your camera, which works great, or an external audio recorder, which I prefer. So then you can position it better. So let's say you're shooting a long shot, you can still hear your audio because your audio is up close. But that is like the next thing I would buy, absolutely, because if you think about watching a video, you can handle kind of crummy quality in the visual aspect, like some dinky footage. It's grainy or it's not well lit, but you can still tell what's going on. But if it's the audio and all you can hear is
that's true.
You
can't hear the joke,
you're
it
like
doesn't matter.
immediately turned off. If it's just wind noise, or if it's super overmodulated, or if anything bad's going on. And then that's another. This is a huge point for professionals too. That professional videographers don't always remember, or audio engineers will always remember because that's their main job.
Yeah.
But you want to listen to your footage before you record every time, because usually on your camera, if you have a DSLR or something like that, a handy cam, it will show your microphone levels, and you can see your little level meter, and it'll go up and down, and it'll hit red, and that means overmodulated, which means you're way too loud. But you always want to listen to it first, because maybe that's interference it's picking up, and that's what's overmodulating it, or maybe it's not plugged in correctly. Or maybe you were being a ding dong and you plugged your microphone port into your headphone port on your camera, and you're like, oh nope, it's in, we're ready to shoot, and then you find out you don't have like any audio at all because nothing. You didn't even get camera audio because something was plugged in, something weird somewhere. Or some of these mics too, you also have to turn on. They've got on and off switches because they're battery powered.
Right.
So you forget to turn it on. So always double check and listen to it. It helps a lot whenever if you can have two cameramen, so you've got the guy behind the camera and the guy holding the mic stick.
Right.
And the guy with the mic stick's got his headphones in and he gives a thumbs up like, yep, we can hear him, it's good. And then that will drastically change the quality of your video. But doing that and having an external mic to record will require video software on a computer. So it will require you to upload to a computer. You can't just edit that on your phone.
Yeah.
You have to sync it in your computer. I advocate using Adobe products because I always have and they're great, but I understand that costs some money.
Yeah, it does.
And if you are not Hacker Man and cannot find a way to get that, there are other alternatives.
Yeah, not that we would ever, what's the word? Promote
piracy.
Piracy, yeah, that's a bad thing.
Because I'm a huge fan of repping
Repping the brand.
And so the original creators and the people in the product you use, I think that you should pay for it if it is a paid service.
That's right.
But there are free options.
Yeah.
There's GoPro has there's Quick, which is the mobile one, but there's also a GoPro editing app for computers that I think you can get even if you don't own a GoPro. And it allows you to cut and slice and paste and move your video clips. And I believe it allows you to plug in audio as well.
Right.
So that's a good option. There's also Windows Movie Maker, the cheap one that you download. And then that will work as well. I believe there's a spot to sync an audio file in that too. Actually, I've used Windows Movie Maker multiple times because not that Adobe failed me. It's just that my work, it would provide me with, it was not CC, it was not the Creative Cloud.
Yeah.
So it was an older version. It was a 2012 version of Adobe, the Adobe Suite.
Yep.
So some of the newer video files that have come out, like MVEC and even MOV files, which are different. They're called codecs, but it's different types of video files that your computer or whatever will record to play the video. It didn't recognize that, so I had to download Windows Movie Maker and play it on Windows Movie Maker and save it as a video from Windows Movie Maker in order to
re-edit it. Oh.
Fun fact.
Yeah. Well, branching off of that, brand talk and companies and whatnot that aren't our sponsors, we'd like to take a moment to thank our sponsor, Alternating Current Electricity. Now, are you tired of your direct current electricity? Some may not know this, but this was an archaic version of electricity developed by Thomas Edison, and oftentimes this just wouldn't work. Like it was very, very oversaturated, and it would damage people's homes and when it first came about. But then a smart young fellow by the name of Nikola Tesla developed this thing called alternating currents. It is much more efficient, very interesting, and you can use it to power your home, and you can use it to power the audio devices which you are using to listen to this very podcast. Now, if you don't want to blow up your house by using direct current and listen to this podcast, consider switching to alternating current. I believe there are many, many fine companies out there. Where I am located in Jacksonville, we have a small startup company known as Jacksonville Electric, JEA. They, I believe, they provide electricity to many places in the city. So yeah, we'd like to thank our sponsor, Electricity. And now let's get back to the filmmaking.
So you have your phone, you have your three friends that are going to be in the video, and your little brother, who you're going to make hold the microphone.
Right. Yeah. I had that as a note that you should, utilize your family and friends and
Correct, because your little brother can never
film.
say no to you.
Correct.
It's slave labor, and it's great.
Yep.
So here, check this out. You don't have a microphone.
You don't have family?
No, you don't have a microphone.
Oh, okay.
But you get your other phone, right? So now you have your little brother's phone,
That's
or
true.
your friend, one of your friends who's acting. You have their phone.
Yeah.
And then you put that phone on the stick, and now that becomes your microphone.
Yeah.
Because it's just better than trying to shoot and record audio from 8 feet away if you can get it really close. And in the phone, phone recorders have gotten better. They're not the best, but it will make a difference.
Yeah, I always thought that was kind of funny that like the video and photography quality on cameras is astounding.
It's very good.
Yeah, like I have a Google Pixel 2 and it, I can become an Instagram model within half a day because my pictures they're just amazing. But yeah, the audio quality is not great. You're still kind of limited to recording super duper low quality voice memos on your record button app.
Correct. So now that you have that, let's assume that you are going to use either iMovie if you have an iPhone, which does cost money.
Does
it? There's a free version, but the premium or paid version
Obviously,
costs it's $5.99, I think.
Oh, it's not that bad.
Don't quote me on that. I'm not positive. I'm not an avid Apple user.
I just want to ruffle some feathers.
I have an Android, so we did have iPhones at my work, so that's what we used, and we used iMovie.
Oh.
To edit things on iPhones, and we use little iPhone editing apps. But for Android, there are a few. Some of them are paid, some of them are free, some of them suck, some of them suck less.
Uh-huh.
But I think one's called Power Director, and one's called Pro Movie. And we just type in video editor in your respective app store, and something will show up that will more or less probably work for you.
You're talking about editing on your phone?
Correct. You can edit on your phone.
Oh.
And it's also kind of finicky, the gestures you use, and it's a weird learning curve, but it's good.
Does some stuff.
Mm-hmm. And it will create good videos. So my boss, he got cancer. He overcame it. But he had cancer for a while, so he did a little vlog of his medical treatment and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And it was a challenge that he would do everything.
Only on his phone.
Only on his iPhone, correct. So he would do the voiceover parts, record it on his iPhone, and he would plug it in an iMovie underneath, the photos or the whatever else. And, it has fades and it has the wipe transitions and all sorts of stuff. And he would make it all in iMovie. And that was the goal, was to never put it on his computer. And he didn't. And he'd upload it to YouTube straight from his phone, to Facebook straight from his phone. And it was really cool. It was really good quality stuff.
Yeah.
I think the series is called F Cancer, if you guys want to look into that. F being the word, not just the letter. But it's by Mark Fayloga, MarkFayloga. And all of those cancer videos were made just on his iPhone, which is pretty cool.
Interesting.
So let's go a little further. Let's say you're past that extreme micro budget of your little brother and your two phones. Let's say that you now have some type of DSLR even a Handycam, with an actual either zoom lens or a focus pulling lens where you can change the focus yourself.
Yeah.
And then you have a microphone, that you can use to record the people with up close. And then you need a tripod. You need what's called stabilization. So even if you just use your iPhone, I would recommend using stabilization, even though it's not required with a DSLR or some other type of camera. It's also not required, but it makes a huge difference when you have stabilized footage, because that will be a huge quality factor, is if you record it all. And you don't have to be fancy. You don't need a special fancy gimbal or a slider or all of these things. I mean, they're great, but all of these shots work fine just on a tripod.
Yeah.
And if you put it on a tripod and you get your stable footage, that does bounce for quality. So when I was working, some of the people who worked under me would come back with their footage like, oh, hey, yeah, check out my footage. I did this and I shot this and that. And it's all super shaky because they used the tripod twice. Or they put their camera on the tripod, but then they just held the tripod instead of putting it on the ground and setting it up.
Oh, yeah.
And so all these shots are super shaky and super crazy, which, I mean, sometimes that's what you want and that's what you go for, and that's the plan because you want an action movie and an action sequence.
Yeah, but
all of those
even,
action shots will work just as well on a tripod. It's just because of lazy filmmaking or lazy shooting. Unless you specifically choose to do it handheld, it should be stabilized in some way, shape, or form.
Right, and those people also usually are well experienced in doing handheld filming.
Yes. Which the only way to get well experienced is to do it more. But
yeah,
I think
with purpose.
A good rule of thumb is even if you're out doing a news story or you're out shooting a high action run and gun shoot for, like there's an obstacle course or there's a race at your school or whatever's going on, or a football game and you're filming all of that. Everything you can film handheld, you should also shoot it on a tripod. So shoot it on a tripod first and then shoot it the other way so you can compare and contrast later. But stabilization is like the super important. So now we've got your camera, your mic, and your tripod, and your people to film. Great, you're set. This is awesome. We're just putting more and more stuff on here. But
yeah, adding things to the shopping list. And as far as adding things to the shopping list, the next little note I had, because this is something I didn't really, I definitely still don't know much about it and don't really use it at all, but I was doing some stuff helping out some film students at my college, and they were making a super duper big fuss about like lighting and making sure everything was perfectly lit, and obviously they had the benefit of being able to borrow equipment from their program, so they had these big old towers of LED lights and big old metal stands and cables everywhere, and I was just like, oh, okay, that looks better than what I did out in the woods with my DSLR.
Right, so I was going to say next, let's jump back to photography for a second. Photography is a word that comes from I believe it comes from Greek, actually, not Latin, but maybe Latin.
You probably should have Googled that.
I probably should have Googled it first. But anyways, photo means light, which is Latin, but graphy means, or graph, it means writing. So you're writing with light is literally what photography means. So half of photography is your lighting. You can't take a photo in the dark because all you see is darkness. And it's about how well lit. And well lit doesn't mean more light. It means proper light placement. So if you talk to photographers, they always talk, even videographers too, it's always about golden hour, which is in the afternoon right before the sun sets. Also in the morning, depending on where you live. But usually in the morning around sunset, in the afternoon, late afternoon, evening around, or morning around sunrise.
There we go.
Yep, that one. And evening around sunset, where you have these long shadows and the sun is far on the horizon and you get this nice golden color on everything. And so that creates this nice lighting effect outside for free without buying any lights, as if you're shooting in golden hour.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's how what's that Leonardo DiCaprio movie that just came out? Revenant. Like that's what they did that all during golden hour, which is why it was just like, good looking.
So the goal with that movie, actually The Revenant, was to use all natural lighting.
Yeah.
So even though like they wouldn't bring in like lights, but they would bring in more torches or whatever.
Right.
Or but I think they had to artificially impose moonlight twice with some blue lights, and they had to artificially impose a fire once because the fire wasn't bright enough with him sitting at it. They had to put a light on the other side of it.
Yeah.
But those are the 2 times in that movie where they used artificial light.
Yeah, the 2 times in the 3.5 hours.
3-hour long movie. Yeah. So lighting is very important. So that translates directly into video. But you don't have to go out and buy a $1,500 light kit. Actually, please don't. Please don't go do that. If you best case scenario, you have some shop lights lying around, like in the garage, or whatever. Your friend's dad has a workshop and he's got all these like cool stuff. He'll have floodlights, which are like super high powered flashlights, which work great. If that isn't the case, and maybe you have a flashlight, or maybe you have some type of light, you have lamps. Lamps work great if you're working inside. But one thing to be cautious of is you can't just shine a flashlight. Like, let's say you're outside in the woods, you need a little bit of light. You can't just shine your flashlight on your dudes.
Yeah.
The guys you're filming, because then it's like, oh, you're obviously hitting them with the flashlight. This looks stupid. Unless you're going for that type of Bear Grylls nature documentary where you're cognizant there's a camera there and you just hit them with the flashlight. That would work fine. But what works really well is if you take your flashlight and you go to the dollar store. Well, you don't have to take your flashlight to the dollar store, but go to the dollar store and buy a piece of foam board, like 3 feet by 2 feet. It's like the size of a piece of poster board, just a white foam board. And then you shine your flashlight on that and then face the reflecting light on your people. And so now you have this big giant surface reflecting all of this light onto your subjects, and it works really, really, really well.
So that's better with like a matte kind of white thing rather than like
a glossy white, or
I was gonna say rather than with like tinfoil.
Correct. It's much better with the matte white thing. And you can also buy reflectors that'll do the same thing on Amazon for like $16 or $25, depending on the size you want.
Those big fold out white thingies.
Okay. Correct. They like fold down into a little circle, fold out into a bigger circle, and there's a couple colors on there. And I have one and I use it sometimes, but like if I would much prefer to, if I'm in a building and there's a white wall, I would prefer to use the white wall than that, because the white wall is a bigger surface and you just bounce light off that. Or if there's a big white ceiling, and bounce it off the ceiling. But that's an easy way to create light, is if you just get a piece of foam board or a couple pieces of foam board and some flashlights. And that's like a super easy lighting solution, and that can even be done it can be done anytime with any camera, and it works just as well.
Okay. So that, you got any more notes on lighting? What about like colors and stuff?
So, in your camera, if you have a DSLR, and I think some like Handycam video recorders do it too. Phones don't. There may be some like
fancy pants filming phones.
Camera software, camera apps that you can download. I haven't checked in a while that will provide it, but it's called your white balance. So the way the camera reads light is it reads it in color temperature. And if you have, like, you'll see it in light bulbs, you see like the long fluorescent tube lights that you would find in the top of like a hallway at a school or a hospital are very like whitish blue looking usually.
Right.
So that's just the color of that light. And then you look at,
like that one is yellow.
This one above us is yellow. It's just an old tungsten bulb. So anyways,
kind of the same as like cars, where like the fancy pants
cars with the blue headlights, and then there's the the dinky old truck with the yellow headlights. So that's just different colors of light temperature. So depending on the light shining on your subjects, that's what color they'll be. So you can change that temperature, or how your camera reads that color in your camera. And you can also do that to a stylish effect too. So let's say you want a moonlight scene, and it's
more blue.
You just make it more blue, right? You make it more blue, and then you can shoot a moonlight scene in the daytime as long as you don't see the sky and the sky is bright. Make it more blue. Or if you're shooting like a love scene where you're at the beach and you want everything to look super pretty and whatever, make it a little more orange, like sunset, mimic that golden hour look.
Huh.
And so that's a very stylish thing you can do with your colors.
Yeah.
And
I'm sure you can spend more money and then move on to like doing actual like colored light things where you get the kind of I don't know if I'm sure there's like special lighting.
So there are. It's more of a stage lighting thing. So if you've ever
Yeah.
worked in theater or in a theater, there's like every school has a theater tech, the one student who knows everything about every light in the theater.
Yeah.
So if you know who that is, talk to that guy. He's a great resource. But they're called gels, and you put your gel over your spotlight, and it will give it a different color tone. So if you ever walk onto a stage, really at a theater, and you look up, you see all the lights. If they're all on, a bunch of them are different colors. There's a bunch of red and blues up there with the whites. They're not all just white lights. There's a couple red and blues and like an orange, and maybe a purple or something. And those lights together create the color temperature that the stage director and manager wants. But they can be done stylishly too, to change your light color. Also, if your flashlight's too bright, get a piece of toilet paper and some tape and put that over it. And if that's still too bright, get another piece of toilet paper.
Yeah.
And that's a great way to dim your light source.
You get the soft lighting.
Soft lighting, correct. Well, that's what helps too is if you bounce it off a big board,
Right.
the bigger your surface that your light comes from, aka a board or a wall, the softer the light will be.
Yeah. Because it's more spread out space.
Right. And the difference between soft light and hard light, you get really sharp reflections and sharp shadows. So in your eyes, there will be a giant, reflection of the light source. And then there will be a really hard shadow. So if you shine the light from one side of their face, the rest of your face will be very shadowy.
Yeah.
As opposed to a soft light source, the shadow will be less intense and the difference in tone. But lighting is important, but it's not
the end all.
Not the end all be all, correct. But there's great ways to use, environmental lighting, street lights, or
Oh yeah, it's true.
So you're shooting your street shot, you shoot it, and don't be like, whatever, just go reshoot it. If you get the better idea, it'll take 5 minutes to go reshoot it.
Because we're in, low budget hobby filmmaking.
Right.
Whereas, I'm sure if you're like paying people by the hour, you're like, nope, one shoot, we're done. I think that's probably good for lighting.
Yeah.
Well, we skipped over it earlier, but one of my bullet points was getting props, and that's more along the line of just like kind of what you were talking about earlier with what do you already have,
So,
like
right.
But I guess we were talking about like people in that instance, but like you could totally get some dumb ideas from like, oh, I used to play airsoft. I have a bunch of airsoft guns. What's the easy thing to do with that? Do like a little military deal. Or like a gunfight or something.
So I don't know what happened to it, but it was New Year's. It was like 6 years ago. It was a long time ago. 5 years ago. My friends and I, it was 2013 to 2014 New Year's. So it was like 5 years ago. We decided to make a Snapchat movie. Maybe it was the year before that. Anyways, so we had nothing to do. We're like bored. It's New Year's Day or the day before New Year's. I don't know what day it was.
Snapchat was out.
Right. So Snapchat was still pretty fresh, but like all of our friends had it, and it was the go-to communicationating device platform to use. I mean, it still is today. But we were like, oh, let's make a movie. Let's make a Snapchat movie. Yeah, this will be sick. And like it worked out in our heads, and we just have to plan it out, because we just record it one snap at a time, and one snap is like
15 seconds.
Yeah, it's up to 10 seconds. So 3 to 10 seconds. And then that also, doing that was a cool challenge because it required us to have all of our shots within the 10-second bound, which is pretty easy, and that's really what you end up with anyways. But it allowed us to not be lazy and do different, we just had the camera set up, boom, and we had 10 seconds to film our short little snippet. So we're like, okay, what do we have? So we had like, my dad was in the army, so we had like some old military uniforms, and then we had we were on my dad's farm, so we had like woods and land around us and everything. We had a barn, and then like a purple morph suit. I had a purple morph suit, and they were like, okay, here's our main props.
I can pretty much extrapolate it from here. I wasn't there, but I'm imagining a purple alien comes and lands in the woods, and then he's hunted by some military people. No? Maybe.
More or less, yeah.
Yeah.
With the side twist that our friend Jake had super big sideburns, so he was the Wolverine. So we made a Wolverine movie.
Oh.
So it started out in the bar, and we had a pool table. So
what the hell did the purple morph suit do?
he was the bad guy.
He was just
The
a guy
Wolverine
in it.
fought. Yeah.
He was just. Then what are the
Hey,
military?
we had the props, so we used it.
All right.
But anyway, so Wolverine comes in with his kitchen knife or his butter knife claws, and he saves from some girl from being accosted at the bar where she's playing pool or he's playing pool or whatever. So Wolverine like kills some dude, and then he walks out. And we wanted the motorcycle, but we didn't have one.
How did you do the shing where he does his shing?
Oh, we just pulled him up real quick.
Oh.
And so he had him down, and then we made the noise shing whenever we pulled him up.
Oh.
And it worked. It worked pretty well.
No, like stop motion animation of
No.
it going.
No, that would have been cool though. But no, we didn't do that. But anyways, then he went out to where then it cut to the next scene where it was like the military guys hunting the Wolverine. That's what it was. The military guys were hunting the Wolverine.
Oh.
And so the Wolverine then took out the military guys. And then one of them came back from the dead and turned in and morphed into the purple monster.
Did you ever drop any of the butter knives?
Yeah, probably.
I was gonna say that'd probably be a pain in the ass to hit someone with a fucking butter knife claw.
Yeah. No, we were pretty good about it. No, he did like the uppercut where he like picked us up, but he just like picked us up from between the legs, so it looked like it went through our bodies.
And then you filmed it from the proper angle,
right,
so
yeah,
you don't.
So it was like
the guy jumps into it. And
yeah.
Tricky shots.
Exactly. It was pretty fun. But anyways,
yeah.
Then one of the dead military guys turns into the purple dude, and then the Wolverine goes to see the scientist because my dad was a doctor, so we had a lab coat, and so we had a lab coat. So we went to the study with like the bookcases and stuff, and then saw the scientist, talked to him, and then he was like, "I've never seen anything like this before. Whoa, this is crazy!" And then it turns out the scientist is the purple goo man. Oh. And so then they get into a fight right outside on our front patio, and the end. That's it.
And that was all in little 10-second clips?
Yeah, that was all in 10-second clips, and it was a total of like 280 seconds or something.
Oh, that's
so it was like 4.5 minutes.
Oh yeah, easy peasy.
But anyway, so that was something we did, and we had a phone with Snapchat. The only thing we actually needed was that we struggled with was an internet connection. So we'd have to run back to the house after we shot everything to pick up on the Wi-Fi so we could post it to the internet or post it to Snapchat.
Oh, so you didn't need like
service.
So it was literally just a scene by scene
yeah, like shot by shot Snapchat story that we uploaded to Snapchat. And before we wouldn't be like, hey, don't view any of our snaps for the next 2.5 hours because we're making a movie. So watch them all in 2.5 hours. And it took us like 6 hours to film it anyways. We were like, this will be easy. And it's like late into the night, and it's like 1:30 in the morning, and we're still trying to finish our snaps on the front porch.
Were you
and we're
like
so sick of it.
saving them as you were doing it?
We saved the whole Snapchat story.
Oh, okay.
So I think this was before you could save a snap that you made.
Oh.
This is like the early days.
Yeah.
But like we filmed that playing the thing with another phone, and I really hope we still have it somewhere.
It's probably doesn't hold up.
Probably doesn't.
Up. There's probably some nostalgia to it, and you're like,
there's some nostalgia,
some cringe-worthy nostalgia,
right? But anyway, so it can be as simple as that. So another thing that goes into what I wanted to hit on next, unless Andrew, did you have another bullet point you wanted to hit?
No, we've got like 10 minutes left. So
okay.
We hit everything pretty much.
I just wanted to go back into the story point. So, I mean, if you're listening to us, then you already are that one nerdy friend, but you probably have that other one nerdy friend.
Yeah, it's so easy to find nerds.
Who reads a lot, is into light novels or books or comic books or manga or TV shows or whatever. And so they've been exposed so much to all these different stories, and all these different aspects of storytelling and story writing and character development, that goes much past the I want to film something thing into the uh, okay, I read a lot of books and I want to be, a writer, or I want to be, having a higher reading comprehension or
Yeah.
story building comprehension. That's like in pretty. So, anyways, somebody who's very exposed to all these stories, hit them up, talk to them, and brainstorm with them about your story ideas.
Yeah.
One important, especially this is the most important thing in the professional world, and it's still very important, but not as important in the micro budget backyard film shoot world. But your pre-planning phase. So pre-planning, knowing what you're going to shoot. In the professional world, whenever you've got like 8 people with you and they're all doing different things and you have to be synced up, you have this whole shot list and everybody has the same piece of paper, so everybody knows what's happening right after the thing. And it's super regimented and very Nazi. But it doesn't have to be like that in your backyard shoot, but you should still sit down with everybody and talk about your story. Or if you don't have a story, sit down and have a brainstorm session and just spit out bad ideas until one of them turns into a good idea.
Yeah, I think that's a good wrap up for filmmaking, and pretty solid tie into just this general super podcast time and other things to be named in the future, possibly.
Super podcast time and then some.
Super podcast time and friends.
And then.
Yeah. But just like having there, like I wanted to create this large community of nerds, and I say nerds in a positive way, because
a very loving way.
Yeah, in a very loving way, because like it's we all have so many diverse interests that are intriguing, and just most people call them nerdy, but who cares? There's a bunch of us, there's less of them, and our stuff's cooler. But like I want to be able to like explore all these cool topics and learn about them. Like I have a huge problem with getting super interested in one topic and then bumping on to the next one. And like, so what Remington was talking about with reaching out to your nerd friends and collaborating and stuff, like that's basically what I'm doing right now. Is I was like, hey, I want to do something I don't know what to do with all my nerdy ideas. I don't know what to do with it. And so I was like, hey, Remington, let's shoot a music video, or hey, let's film a Mystery Hunters TV show, or hey, come talk about filmmaking for an hour, or talk about anime for an hour, or stuff like that. So that's kind of a solid tie-in, is finding other people that have, they don't even have to be the same interest, but just people who are deeply invested in something or deeply interested in things will always find the common ground, not being the topic, but that idea of being invested or interested in something. And that's you can really see someone's enjoyment and love for their topic by just talking to them. And I guarantee everyone will get excited about talking about a thing they enjoy to do or a thing they love. And so if you're just able to connect with them on that and do that. So for regards to this particular episode, if you really enjoy being the nerdy tech filmmaking guru of your friend group, great. And find your nerdy friend who has an Excel spreadsheet of 200 some odd anime and knows quite a deal about anime storylines, and can then extrapolate that into like, hey, so I know this about anime. Now what if I took that storyline and dumbed it down a lot to my thinking level. I'm talking about myself right now because I have an anime Excel spreadsheet and I am less intelligent of a writer than anime writers. But that's basically what I did. Is I was like, oh, I like these storylines. Let me dumb it down to my level and then write this god awful alien movie script mystery thing. I'll get around to it eventually.
And we talk about the importance of story, but don't let that bog you down. Like, if you're going on a camping trip with, like, you know, your best friend and your family, or, like, you know, your church this weekend is going on a camping trip and you're going to, or, like, you know, if you're young and you're going with, like, a Boy Scout troop or something, just bring your camera, and now you're in a tent and there's a fire and it's nighttime. Like, you can shoot a scary movie, boom, easy, and just have somebody shake the outside of the tent, or like whatever, or have a bear attack and figure out, you know, how to make it, or like a Sasquatch or something. You know, you watch scary movies and 99% of the movie you don't see the monster or the ghost or whatever, especially in these older ones. It's all about the suspense and the build up. So it's very easy, even if you don't have a story, to kind of just film something. So don't let the story deter you.
And I feel like that's how the whole idea behind like vlogs came about, is that literally your whole life is a story. You just start filming and you'll get something interesting. That's the great part about editing, is you can, well, you know, you film 3 hours of something and come out with, you know, 5 minutes, but it's a good 5 minutes, I feel like.
Also, for the photography, it is Greek.
It is Greek.
It's Greek.
Okay.
I was just watching some other stuff, and Latin is generally what things
come from,
based off of.
I think a lot of sciencey things usually come from Greek.
Right. I was watching. Oh yeah.
I think so. Yeah. That's a good cutoff point. I believe we've just about reached our time. Thank you for listening to another episode of Super Podcast Time. I am Andrew.
And
I was going to say, I'm Andrew, your host of this nerdly interesting world. It seems like a pretty cool sign-off.
And I am Remington, just another practitioner of nerdly things.
Cool. Thank you for listening. Goodbye.